All right, so good morning and welcome to Tolentino Teaching. I wanted to go over writing prompts and starting your class with writing prompts and how I grade them, how I assess them, and how I give students feedback that aligns with how I assess them. So let me show you what I am going to do this year, and I'll leave you the link to this if you want to use it as well. So let me share my screen. All right, so once again, the purpose of writing prompts is to give students the freedom to experiment with ideas, vocabulary, punctuation, and rhetorical devices, and to get students in the habit of using proper spelling, punctuation, and grammar. So, and one thing I'm going to be adding to these prompts is I'm going to be adding very non-traditional kind of writing prompts to try to cater to all the students I get and all the different interests and passions they come with. For example, I'll be uploading prompts on students explaining how to build an engine or how to create a certain kind of software or something like that. Students are yearning for the chance to really demonstrate their knowledge on a lot of things. And in school, we just don't give them the opportunity to do that. So that's one thing I really want to cater to with these writing prompts. But anyways, here's the rubric that I use, okay? So the first thing I'm trying to do with these writing prompts is I want students, these are low stakes, so I want students to experiment with language. And by language, I want to see students are experimenting with ideas, okay, vocabulary, punctuation, and rhetorical devices. Okay, I don't need all of these. For example, if a student is taking focus notes on an article of the week we do on another day, and they write down some new vocabulary words, and they integrate these words into their writing prompts, that's good enough for me. I love that, okay? I'm looking for one or more of these. So I want students experimenting, and I explain this to students. I want to see you experimenting with all these different things, ideas, and then later on, I'll go over the different ideas that I look for and the feedback I give to those ideas. Okay. Vocabulary. So I really celebrate when students use new words in their writing or vocabulary or SAT style words in their vocabulary. And it's actually my goal for students to be making mistakes. Okay. If you are pushing yourself as a writer, you should be making mistakes. Okay. Punctuation. In my class, we go over dashes, colons, periods, even commas. So if I see that they're experimenting with punctuation in ways that they haven't before, I give them credit for that. Rhetorical devices. Okay, if this is generally geared more towards my high school students, but even if a middle schooler integrates hyperbole or anaphora, some kind of repetition, okay, I give them credit for that. I want them experimenting with these different things. And to give full credit, the experimentation needs to be genuine. So any kind of system you give students, their students are smart. They're going to try to manipulate the system in some way. So if students know that you're looking for experimentation, they might try to make it look like they're experimenting. Yeah, students are clever. So if the experimentation is not genuine, I will dock them points. If I don't think it's genuine. Okay. So 4 points, the student is clearly experimenting with all these things. 3 points, just generally. Okay. I typically just give them all the points. The student is sporadically and randomly experimenting with these things and not experimenting at all, I'll give them 1. Okay. So content. Ideas are clear and supported by evidence and reasoning. Now, of course, if it's a creative writing prompt, certain kind of evidence and stuff, you don't have to worry about as much. However, I look for students elaborating on ideas. That's very important for me and giving their reasoning on stuff. Even if they're doing a creative writing prompt, I want them to give explanations, specific explanations of certain little claims that they give. Okay. So for the content points, I look for clarity and our students giving reasoning or some kind of evidence, right? Now, obviously for these writing prompts, there's typically not textual evidence that is needed. That's why I didn't put this here. But I'm looking for explanation of ideas in a clear way. Conventions. Now, for many low stakes writing tasks, teachers don't grade for conventions. Now, I think you can do this with college students or upper level high school students, okay? Because you're just focusing on ideas. However, my students, they need to really focus on using proper spelling, punctuation, and grammar, okay? Because they're normal, many of them, not all of them, but many of my students, they don't care about these things, and it makes their writing look lazy. So these writing prompts, they are going to get graded on how well they use these things, okay? Because I want students to be in the habit of taking their writing seriously and using proper spelling, punctuation, and grammar. Now, I still think it can be low stakes. I still think you can still focus on ideas while grading these things. That's just my opinion, okay? So I do grade this for students. And of course, focus, that's just, did the student address the prompt? Okay. So that's the general rubric I'm going to be using this year for these writing prompts. If you like it, use it. I'll leave it in the description of this video and the comment section, okay? If you don't like it, that's great. Use whatever you use, but this is what I'm going to use. Once again, I put a lot of emphasis on experimentation, okay? And then for feedback, I made another video on feedback. My feedback aligns with how I'm assessing them, or what the rubric is, what I want them to do. Okay. So I give feedback that encourages students to experiment and play with language, of course, because that's one thing I'm really focusing on. Okay. So for example, I want them to experiment with advanced vocabulary. I'll say something like, dude, you just use an SAT word. That's really cool. I see you're expanding your vocabulary. That's awesome. You know how big your vocabulary is going to be once you do get to college? You're going to know so many words. That's going to be great for your writing and thinking. Okay. Holy moly. You're a sixth grader dropping SAT words. Yeah, that's impressive. Okay. I want them experimenting with rhetorical devices. I'll often point it out to them. Oh, wow, you just used a anaphora. Okay, you repeated a word or phrase in successive clauses. That's really impressive. Okay, anaphora helps your readers remember something, or it makes things sound nice. Okay, and then if students experiment with punctuation, I would say something like, "Oh, I love how you used a dash here. However, this is how I would do it if they didn't do it correctly." Okay, as long as they're experimenting with these things, I give them credit. And I give them feedback that aligns with my assessments, okay? Give feedback that celebrates ideas. So I'll probably add more ideas here. This is what came to mind when I wrote this up, but students will often come with unique ideas. You could say something like, I've never heard that before. Where did you learn that? Okay. Creative ideas, funny ideas. I think it's very important to allow students to be funny, especially middle school students, as long as they're not being mean to anyone else. But a lot of students they want to be silly, and you can build on that silliness with their writing. Okay. Logical ideas, I like to give feedback on if students are being very logical. They're giving good, specific reasoning to their claims. Clarity, I like to celebrate clarity in writing. That's very important, okay? And sophisticated ideas are a mind at work, okay? So my feedback advice, celebrate ideas, the experimentation of language, and the clarity of writing, okay? So this is what I have today. Once again, here's my rubric. If you have any questions about the rubric, send me a message on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram. And yeah, so this is what I use. So please subscribe to Tolentino Teaching. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.